Hello, eighth graders. This is Mr. Underwood coming from his garage. My wife's working upstairs, so I have to work in the garage in order to have a little bit of quiet time. So I'm going to guide you through the activity that we're going to do for science this week, and I'd like to show you how to kind of do it. So I'm going to show my screen to you, and hopefully this can help you kind of work through this. So just give it a second and it'll share. So everyone's Google Classroom is going to look pretty similar. This is what I'm typing up for self. And in here, what you're going to have is a couple different things. First of all, this is the assignment. You have to type on this so you can make a copy of this. Next, we have the annotations that we did the other day in class. Now, I graded everyone's, but I can't pass them back to you right now. So I just included my annotations. So you can use this right here to answer questions about refraction and reflection. And it's all here. So I'm going to just close this, and then I have the simulator. And down here is our Google Meetup. So you can click this when you get to class from the class time that you normally have, and I'll be there to conference if you have any questions. But I would always suggest watching the video first, because that's going to help you kind of figure out what I'm talking about. Click here to get started at bending light, and that's going to bring up the simulator. The simulator looks like this when you start. So we're not going to use intro. We're not going to use prisms right now. We're going to use more tools. So click on the more tools tab. And once you click on the more tools tab, you're going to run into the simulation. And I want everyone to just play around with this for a little bit of time. So take 5 minutes right now and just play around with the simulator. We can change it into wave, ray. You can change the materials, the index of refraction, the different materials with a slide bar. Do the same thing down here. We have a couple different tools here. And the angles, I want you to always click this angles button, because that's going to help us out big time when it comes to measuring the angles of things. Okay, so what I'm going to ask everyone to do is just kind of play around with this for 5 minutes and pause it right here, and then I will come back and kind of explain what to do next. Okay, so we're back from the pause. I'm going to kind of show you what to do for the actual assignment. So we're going to click back on Google Classroom. I'm going to click on this. And when I click on the Google Doc, it's going to bring me to the Google Doc. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click File, and I'm going to make a copy. Now, once I make my copy, I'm going to go to the front of the document, title, and I'm going to get rid of this right here where it says copy of. I'm going to erase this, and then I'm going to put my initials in cohort. So I'll just kind of react, and then I will put my initials, which are AU, and then my cohort, which is West. And there's also a make a copy at the back end. Just get rid of that too. So then once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And once I click OK, I'm going to be in my very own document. I can close this old document to get it out of the way. So I have a ton of tabs open right now. Never mind those. Just kind of concentrate on what I'm telling you. Okay, so when we start this, we're going to have the laser pointed at a 45 degree. I'm going to go into a different view in Google Docs, and that's just going to help us see the document a little bit better. Mode. Don't do this yourself. This is just for me to kind of show you a little bit more zoomed in. Okay, so yeah. So now that here we go with the document, it's going to ask you to point it at a 45 degrees. So I come over here, and I'm going to use my protractor, and I'm going to set it up where it's exactly on the air glass border. And I also want to change this. I want to keep this to air, but I want to change this to glass. Sorry, water. So I'm going to change this to water down below. Sorry about that. And then once you click on here, it's going to show you your angle here. And the first angle we need to be at is 45. We're at 45. I can also use the protractor to help measure. They also go in increments of 5. So if we go from the beginning, this is 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, etc. So 45, I'm good to go here, okay? And so after I get it at 45, I'm going to go back here, and it's asking, what are the 3 mediums on the simulator for number 1? So there are 3 different types of mediums you could choose from, and I want you to write down what the 3 mediums are for number 1. For number 2, it's asking you to click on the laser, which you probably already did at this point in time, and tell me 2 things that the light does as it hits the surface of the water. So we learned about 2 things light can do once it hits the surface. So I want you guys to name what they are. And let's say that you can't remember. Go to our annotations that I posted and read through this again, and that will give you an idea of what those two things are called. And I'm not going to point it out to you. I'm going to kind of let you do some research. So for this, please tell me, what are the two things that light does as it hits the surface of the water? I'm going to just pause here, and I'm going to let you guys kind of fill this out. Pause the video. Okay, and now we're back. So now we're going to kind of go to the next type of questions, which are going to ask you to point your laser at a certain angle and then tell me about the intensity of light. So when we do this, it's going to ask you to point it at a 10-degree angle. So I go back to my simulation, and what I do is I get it to 10 degrees. So get as close as you possibly can. It's hard to get it exactly at 10. I'm going to do my best. 10.2. Okay, 10. Perfect. So I got it at 10. You can also use the protractor, whatever floats your boat. And once I get to 10, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the intensity of light. So I'm going to get this guy out right here. And this guy right here is going to tell us an intensity. For example, if I take this and I put it right on the laser before it hits, it's going to tell me 100%. So all you have to do is put this in the laser's path, and it'll measure the intensity in a percentage right here. Okay, so I need to measure it in 3 spots. The 3 spots I need to measure it are before it hits the surface of the water, after it hits the water, and the part that's being reflected off the surface. So I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to move it up here, so it intersects here. I'm going to move it down here, so it intersects somewhere in here. And then I'm going to move it over here, so it's intersecting this right here. Each one of those is going to give you a percentages, and you're going to write that down in the blanks right here, right here, right here. I'll just pause. Go ahead and pause the video to make that happen. Okay, so the next part, we have to do it at 45 degrees from the vertical. So we're going to go back here. We're going to find 45. 44.8, that's close enough. You don't have to be exactly on. And then you're going to go ahead and tell me, you're going to do the same measurements you just did before it hits the surface of the water, after it hits the surface of the water, and then the reflection off the surface. So go ahead and fill out the percentages here, percentages here, percentages here. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, and we're going to do the exact same thing, but now for an 80-degree angle from the vertical. So what I want everyone to do is to go ahead and do the exact same measurement, but now we're going to adjust it to 80. 80's all the way down here. There we go. Ooh, that's a little off. Oops. So 80, 80.6. That's not close. 80 point. 80 sorry, 80. Perfect. I nailed it. Okay. So we're going to do the same measurements, hit it here somewhere, hit it down here, hit it here, get the measurements of the intensity, put the percentage down for 80 degrees. Go ahead and pause it here if you need a minute to like write down this information. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some relationships, okay, about the light of incoming light, the angle of incoming light and the percentage of light that is refracted through the water or reflected off the water. So there's a relationship between the intensity that goes through the water through the water and gets refracted versus the intensity that gets reflected off. So what I want you to do is talk about how does the percentage of light transmitting through the water as it's being refracted change as we change the angle? So if we have a higher angle, does that mean that there's going to be a higher percentage, a lower percentage? If we have a lower angle, like 10, 20, is that going to change how much of the light gets refracted? I'm going to change this question to refracted. That's a better word here, so I'll change that a little bit later. And then down here, we're going to go ahead and talk about the angle of the beam and then the percentage of light reflected. So again, look at this part right here on the bottom where it says beam of light being reflected. Look at the angle and see what the relationship is. If we have a bigger angle, do we have more reflection or do we have less reflection, less intensity? You tell me right here. Go ahead and pause it if you need some time to write down the answers. Okay, so B is asking you about the angles. So if I look at this, it's asking about the angle of incoming light compares to the light reflecting off the surface. So what it's asking, it's basically comparing this angle. I'm going to get rid of this intensity. We don't need it right now. It's basically comparing this angle here to this angle here. Okay, so move this around, see how the angles change depending on where you put them, and then go ahead and write down what you observe right here. Just pause it for a second if you need the time to write. Number 4 asks you to bring it down so it's shining directly on the water. So we want a 90-degree angle. And sorry, we want a 0-degree angle. I'll make an adjustment on that paper. And you want this to be at 0 angles. And what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and get your intensity box out again, and you're going to measure it here after it goes through. And let's say that you measure this and it's like 70. If 70 of this goes through, 70%, then that means that 30% must be reflected back to this. So you're gonna have to use your reasoning skills here, because what you need to do is tell me what percentage of light enters the water and then what percentage of light gets reflected upwards. So measure it here, and then take whatever intensity number you get here and subtract it from 100 to get how much gets reflected back. Go ahead and take a minute and just pause this and write down your answer. Okay, so now we're going to go to number 5, number 6, and number 7, and they're all pretty similar. So I'm going to kind of walk you through these, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to create an air and water kind of. So I got air and water going on here. I want to reset this so it's back at 45. I want to get air and water. So I got air, I need water. Okay, I'm going to put my protractor up just because. And I'm going to show angles. That helps me. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we need to create this boundary. We need to draw this. So I'm going to kind of walk you through drawing this. It's not all that intuitive, so please bear with me. So if I look at this angle, it's at about a 45 degrees, and then I notice that it gets bent a little bit towards this vertical line or normal line, and this is 32 versus 45. So I want to kind of draw that to represent that. So here's what I do. I click on my air and my water box here, and I got to get out of this view in order to make this happen. So just give me a moment, please. So I'm going to go back into this box here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Insert, Drawing, and I'm going to click New. Okay, so once I get this, I get to this empty box, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a drawing. Click Line, and what we're going to start with is just a straight line to start, and I like to put, oops, line, line, put a straight line all the way across the start. Oh, sorry, I'm struggling here. Line. Okay, so now I got it. So we're going to put a straight line all the way across right here, try to get as straight as possible horizontally. And then I like to cross it with a vertical line just like this. And now I kind of have my axes set up. So now I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go to Arrow, and I'm going to put the arrow that comes in. And remember, it's at about a 45-degree angle. So something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's good. And then I remember my other arrow is kind of bent towards the normal. So when I add my next arrow, I want it, oops. So be careful that you don't click on your old arrow like I just did. Again, add an arrow, and I'm going to just right near the origin, kind of come down here and curve it a little bit towards the normal like that. I'm going to adjust this a little bit. I'm not loving the way, oops, and I added another arrow. I'm not loving the way this looks, so I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to just adjust it slightly. Something like that is better. There we go. And so I go to Save and Close, and it pops that picture into that cell, just like that. And it looks great. Okay, so I'm going to eliminate some of the space just to kind of trim it up a little bit, the document, so it's not so long. Right, and now I'm going to do the exact same thing. So now we're going to do air into glass. So that's a little bit different. You got to click here. You got to go to glass. And you're going to go ahead. I'm going to keep it at 45 degrees because that's just pretty easy to draw for me. I'm going to click in the cell. Go ahead and go into Insert, Drawing, New. And once you do that, you're going to add lines. Start with lines, a vertical and a horizontal. And that way you don't have to kind of like shift between all the different types of drawings. So go ahead and add that and that, just like that, perfect. And then we're going to add arrows. So again, at about a 45-degree angle, doesn't have to be perfect. That looks pretty good. I'm going to add another arrow here, and I'm going to add the arrow at the origin, and I'm going to have it churning in a little bit more than my last one because it was a little bit tighter to the normal, something maybe more like that. Save and close, boom, it shows up, and I got my 2 drawings. So I'm going to have you guys draw those the best that you possibly can in those boxes. Go ahead and pause the video and make that happen. Rewind if you need to see how that was done again. Okay, so number 6 is the same exact thing we just did, but now we're going to do it with the same medium. So we'll go back here and we'll change the air, and we're going to change it into air. Actually, what's the first one say? It says water to water. So go ahead and click water and water. There we go. And we're going to draw this. So you're going to go ahead, click on this, insert, drawing, new, add your vertical, add your horizontal, and then add your arrows. Okay, I'm not going to walk you through this. I just walked you through on the last one. If you need help again, go back to the last one. Keep in mind, though, that this one is not the same as the last ones we were looking at. So you're going to do it to water, and then you're going to do it to custom. So they just have to be 2 of the same mediums, okay? So don't do water to water. We just did water to water. Try 2 different mediums. I don't care which mediums you use. Just make sure that you label them here where it says medium. And then you're just going to explain what happens with the 2 same mediums. What did you see occurring with the 2 same mediums? Just give me a brief explanation. Go ahead and do number 6. I'll give you a second. Pause the video right here if you need. Okay, and then number 7 is just going to take a denser medium. So I would use a more dense medium like glass and go into water. And we're going to draw that, okay? And so pay close attention to the angles and how much they change. So this is 45 going in, it's 52 here. So this gets kind of, it goes from like this, and it kind of goes like this, just slightly. So we want to try to represent that in our drawing. And I understand it's hard, but you can represent that if you want. Again, click in the cell, go to Insert, Drawing, New, and go ahead and draw your vertical. And I'll walk you through it one more time. Draw your vertical and your horizontal. Oops. And then add your arrows. Click right here and then add 2 arrows to represent what it looks like as it goes into water, into air. And then just save and close, and that picture will show up. To do that for this one, glass above, air below, and then you're going to go ahead and do a custom one where you pick 2 ones that you want. Make sure that the more dense is on top. You have to have the more dense on top. Glass is the most dense material that we have in this activity, minus the mystery ones, but I'm not even sure if they're more dense or less dense. You'd have to check that out yourself. But you can pick whatever you want as long as the top one is more dense. Go ahead and answer this question. Oh, and B asks you what happens to the light when the laser is moved down. Okay, actually, just go ahead and answer this, and then I will explain B to you. So go ahead and answer 7A real quick. Okay, and then B is asking this. What happens to the light of the laser when it's moved downwards of 60-degree angle? So let's see what that means. And it's asking downwards at 60-degree angle into a less dense medium below. So I want to have a less dense medium below, water and air works. And so I'm going to find 60. So here's 60. And you're going to move it down like this. And you're going to observe what happens when you do that, okay, as you go to the surface. Again, the question is asking, what happens to the light when the laser is moved downwards between the angle of 60 degrees and the surface of the less dense medium below? And so I want you to just explain what's happening as we go from 60 down to 90. What happens? And then it asks, what is this called? So I want you to explain what it's called right here for C. And then 8 and 9, they're two kind of short answer questions. Use a protractor to determine what angle you move the laser upwards so that you can begin to see the light enter the less dense medium below. So if we look at this, we need more dense on top, less dense on bottom. We got that. So it's asking, if we start at the vertical, at what angle do we start to see the light transmit? So I want you to just slowly go up and see when it first starts to refract, write down that angle, and you're going to write down that angle right here. Oops, sorry, right here. So write down the angle at where you see the laser show up for the first time in the less dense material down below. And the last question is just asking, what is the only medium that light would travel through even faster than air? So if you could have light traveling faster through something, through air, what would it be? And we actually read about that in our reading. So if you go back here and you go to our reflection annotations, you can read through this again, and it's here in this, okay? So if you're not sure what number 9 is, go ahead and check it out. But that's basically the assignment. This is just a walkthrough. It should help you kind of do this, and I hope it was useful to everyone. And thanks.